Eric D. Williams, you know him, you love him. Fox Sports reporter, covers all things AFC, NFC West. He is the man, the myth, the legend. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing well,
Great.
Eric. Are you tired of Fernando already? You keep going on these road trips with him to Oxnard, road trips to Irvine or Costa Mesa. Like, you got to be tired of the guy, right?
No, because what he doesn't know is I'm creating a book called Writing with Fernando.
I don't know if people would no, Eric. Some people
Believe me, they'll read.
Some people wouldn't like our conversations that we
Well,
have.
there'll be a big chapter from Dan and Dago's takes, right? I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, that's like a whole separate book almost, really.
I will buy that. I will do that.
Speaking of which, Gilbert, if Eric has a son, shout out to his son,
Isaiah.
Isaiah. Yeah, thank you. Gilbert, what kind of hairstyle do you think Isaiah has? Look at his father. What kind of hairstyle?
He's not going for the shaved head look. I don't think he's going for that. But I think I've seen a couple of pictures. I think he's rocking the curly hair, no?
Oh, yeah. He has a full set. Eric, why does he not want to cut his hair?
Because he's afraid he'll look like me in a couple of years.
We got to write.
He's running like Corbin Blue from High School Musical.
Yeah.
I guess if you do shave it and you start growing it back and you see it's kind of coming back too far back, then you do freak out. So maybe it's better not to know, Eric. I like the approach of your son.
We all drove together to the Seahawks Chargers preseason game, and Isaiah's funny. He's a funny dude. So I had met him when he was young, like I'm telling you, like 12, 13 years old. I hadn't seen him in a while.
Days.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a lot. Yeah, skateboarding days, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and I saw him now. I'm like, damn. I'm like, look at the fit, look at the hair. He's like, yeah, dude, I'm swagged out. And Eric's just rolling his eyes.
He's an interesting character, man. He makes me laugh like all the time.
Oh, he had me dying in the car, but yeah, it's been interesting traveling all this time with Eric. We got another one coming up, Raiders Chargers in a couple weeks, so that'll be a fun one. But Eric, right off the bat, man, we got to ask you. The three of us had discussed this, and I think all three of us were in the same wheelhouse on who we thought was going to win the Raiders job. They go with Gardner Minshew. Eric, thoughts on Gardner Minshew taking the starting job over AOC?
Yeah, I think all three of us were in Costa Mesa at the same time to watch the Raiders practice, and we got an up-close view of Aidan O'Connell and Minshew. Got a chance to talk to Tom Telesco, former GM with the Chargers, now with the Raiders. I kind of always thought it was going to be Gardner just because of the amount of money that they paid him. 2 years, $25 million, $15 million guaranteed. Knowing Telesco a little bit in his history with the Chargers, they never want that kind of money to be sitting on the sidelines. They want their money on the field. And if all things were equal and really out of those two guys, nobody really grabbed the job when you watch them both in practice and in preseason games. And so why not go with the guy that has a little bit more experience, that's making more money, and see how he does out the gate. There's a lot of, stress on winning games early, which makes sense because Antonio Pierce is just a year off of removing the interim tag. So he's obviously wants to win games to keep his job, really. And so it makes sense to go with the more experienced guy. This is an organization, a team that turned the ball over 24 times last year. So a guy that can maybe help limit turnovers, I think will be important. He's got a little swag to him. He's got a little Jim McMahon to him, with the headband and kind of the moxie, I guess, is one word that Telesco used to describe him. And so, he kind of just looks like a Raider. When you watch him out there on the field, he kind of fits that franchise and kind of their culture. And so I'm interested to see how he does, but I also understand that it's probably going to be a short leash. If they start off 1-3, 2-4, I would expect Aidan to be in there at some point because, again, they expect to win games. And also watch that interaction with Adams, what that is like on a weekly basis, because I do think that's going to impact, who's in the game.
Yeah, Eric, I was thinking that, like, who's gonna make Devontae Adams happy? At least through the trading deadline, where like, hey, you're pushing the ball down the field, you're giving me opportunity. It might not be the best pass, but give me an opportunity to make a play. And I feel like Minshew does that with his backyard style, throwing the ball down the field. I feel like with AOC, yeah, there's some upside you haven't seen, but how high is that upside? It doesn't feel like it's too high. Obviously, he's on a first round pick, but from the start, it felt like Pierce wanted AOC because he kind of got him the job, which ironically, those couple wins with the Chiefs and the Chargers knocked him out of the top 10 pick to get a quarterback. So AOC helped himself there. But like what you said earlier, Eric, I thought maybe it felt like a fair shake for both guys. If Tom's guy is Minshew and AOC is Pierce's guy, go earn the job. Nobody did. So now Double T there is like, hey, AP, can I vouch for my guy? Do you have an open ear here? And I think that's what it felt like. So I don't know what you guys felt, or Fernando, you want to give your thoughts here, but it just seemed like at the end of the day, it's like Tom Telesco who paid him that money. And for now, to your credit, you did bring him to the point that, yeah, maybe he never worked with Minshew, but Minshew worked with Shane Steichen, who Shane Steichen worked with the Chargers for many years.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what my point was, is that obviously bringing in Minshew was going to be competition for AOC, and you can't just give him the job. But I really think that I'm sort of wondering how short the list. So let's just say, because obviously Gardner right away is going to get Jesse Minter's scheme. Nobody knows what this scheme is going to look like because it's been in college, but you don't know what it's going to look like in the NFL. So Eric, my question to you quickly, or not quickly, my question to you is, let's just say Gardner first in the first half throws 2 picks and the Chargers are kind of up. What do you think? Do you think that's how short the leash is?
Wow.
Or do you feel like it's games like you said, 1-3, something like that? Or do you feel like right away, 2 interceptions deep, Chargers are up, like, let's just say 21-0 going into half? Is that when he pulls the trigger and says, you know what, let's try something else? And how, because obviously it's going to depend on how tight what's his name? Antonio Pierce feels it, how hot it gets in there. But how do you feel like how short do you think that leash is?
Yeah, I expect it to be a four games. He talked about addressing this first quarter of the season and that they needed to start fast during the first quarter of the season. And I feel like you can't manage a quarterback game by game, that you have to give him a little bit of room for error to make some mistakes so he can go out there and play free and not feel like he's going to be, it's do or die on every throw that he makes. So if he does make a bad play or makes an interception, he's got to have the ability to kind of shake it off and get out there and continue to play, like a gunslinger, or at least, be able to throw it in there and kind of live with the results for a couple games. And so I don't think it's going to be, play a bad half and you're out. I could be wrong, but I would imagine he's going to give him, 3-4 game, run out and then address, evaluate, kind of see where you're at.
Gilbert, can I say just 2 things real fast? One, I love how former players are the ones that divided up into quarter, like the first 4 games, the next 4, like Anthony Lynn used to do that a lot. I've heard Dan Campbell say that, like, the season's divided into quarters. So I love that. But going back to Gilbert's point and to yours too, Eric, he was basically begging, like every press conference that somebody would ask him, hey, Aidan O'Connell and Minshew, and he'd be like, somebody needs to take this job and say, hey, this is my job, I'm going to take it. That's not what it felt like happened. It didn't feel like somebody just took the job. It felt like they went with who's going to give us the least problems and who could help us win. And I mean, let's be fair, Gardner was 1/4 down away from possibly winning the division for his team, for the Colts last year, and knocking out Houston. So I think Gardner kind of gives him a better opportunity. Like we said, though, we don't know how he's going to be able to do on this team, but I feel like Gardner kind of gives them a better chance over AOC. Now, my only question is, Gardner has been a backup in years past where he doesn't start off the season. He's the guy that comes in later. How is that going to be for AOC now, being a backup after the season that he had last year? He probably thought, you know what, I probably deserve to be the guy. He's not the guy, and now he has to come in and be a backup. So I wonder how all that's going to go.
Yeah, I want, let's end this here and just think about this. I just thought about it, Eric, and sorry if I cut you off.
But, no.
Gardner Minshew did not have that strong of a defense last year with the Colts. And they were okay. They weren't the best, but they still won 8-9 games.
Shouts at Gus Bradley.
I'm sorry, but the Raiders feel like they have a better defense. Yeah, and I'm blanking on the DC's name. Oh, Patrick Graham. It feels like they might have a top 10 defense. So maybe they just saw what happened last year. You kind of just do simple math, 8-9 wins with that defense. With our defense, maybe it's 10. You make the playoffs. I don't know if you guys buy that kind of math there, Eric and Fernando.
Oh, I think they're going to play similar to how Pete Carroll played with Seattle when Russell Wilson was a quarterback his first 2 years, and really lean on your defense, run the football with Zamir White, and get in those 2 tight end sets and do some play action off of that, and take some shots when you can take shots. But really, you're trying to manage the game. You're trying to keep away from the more potent offense that you're going to be facing. Whether it's, potentially the Chargers, although they haven't looked so potent when you've watched them in the preseason. Obviously, the Ravens is their second game that they'll have to deal with on the road. And then I think they have Cleveland, and I can't remember what their fourth game is. So yeah, just game management, is what you're expecting from Minshew. And then when there's plays to be made, make those plays, create some chunk plays, with Adams and with Brock Bowers as well.
It's at Chargers, at Ravens, Panthers go there, and then Browns come there. So that's how that is going to start off. All right, Eric, let's move on to a team that you covered for numerous years. But by the way, you missed a hell of a game on Saturday, Eric. You would have had a lot of fun at the stadium, and so would you, Gilbert. You guys would have had one. Food was actually pretty good, by the way. I can't complain. They had tri-tip. They had lemon pepper wings. They had some good.
Nothing negative from the SoFi Stadium cafeteria. That's a rare day, Fernando.
I know. And what's crazy? So they had fried chicken at the beginning. They ran out and they put some spicy ass fried chicken. People were burning their mouths. Wow. So I thought that was actually pretty funny. But before we jump into some Charger talk, Eric, first off, what do you make of this?
Great. It felt like the music should be playing. I thought I heard music. Maybe it felt great. It felt great.
So that was Jim Harbaugh reacting to Justin Herbert being back at practice today. According to Daniel Popper of The Athletic, Justin did not have cleats on. He had running shoes or something like that. He did not have cleats, and I think they only did 7-on-7, no 11-on-11. So they're easing him back in. But Eric, this should be positive news for the Chargers, isn't it? That they have number 10 back.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing I do is check, Harbaugh's Gatorade bottle to see what's going on there. And then the second thing I would say is it's obviously great news. I'm glad he heard music or whatever was going on with what's happening there at the practice facility. But I'm interested to see how they manage Herbert over the next 2 weeks, like in terms of his reps and how they ramp him up. And how they continue to kind of, use Easton and Perez and other quarterbacks to kind of get ready for the season. But I would be interested to see, how Justin's moving over the next couple of weeks, and does he look kind of like his old self?
Eric, there is no other quarterbacks. It is now just Luis Perez, Easton Stick, and Justin Herbert.
That's right, because Max was cut, correct?
Yeah, he was cut today. So.
And there was 3.
And then there was 3.
There should really be just one, because they are in trouble if Justin Herbert does not play a game. And
I told Gilbert, Easton Stick, if he is cut, he's going to find a home.
Oh, yeah. Like you mentioned, Tom Telesco, who gave him that record of most inactive games with the same team and never get waived or cut. I don't know what the hell he did there to earn that record. I'm sure it's a record, Eric. I haven't looked into it, but the most inactive game streak, it's got to be from Easton Stick. It was like 4 years, right? Something like that.
Wow, that's pretty strong.
I don't know. I got to look it up. But to get my points here, and first of all, if Harbaugh wants to hear music, you can play music during practice. Harbaugh, you don't like music apparently. For when Herbert returns, he has to have some kind of like hallelujah and like a spotlight, go down on Justin
That'd
Herbert.
have been awesome if that
You
happened.
need him like that. You need the son of Odin to shout out Dan and Dago there. But I guess if everything falls on Herbert, like it kind of worries me a little bit. Like it kind of feels like a top heavy team. You got to have everything right. You got to make sure this guy stays healthy or you're screwed. But what can you do, Eric, at this point to get a backup because it's so late in the game? People, I don't know if I'm going to believe it, but I was in Denver for my training camp tour, and everybody was hyping up Zach Wilson there. So maybe you go trade for Zach Wilson, or like Fernando mentioned, go get a DTR from Cleveland. Do you kind of search the trade market, or you just roll the dice like Harbaugh's kind of doing right now and say Herbert's going to be healthy? We'll worry about the rest later.
No, I definitely think during final roster cuts, you monitor the 31 other teams and see who might shake loose, who you can claim on waivers and add. And if they're better than what you have, which I think there's a good possibility of that happening, you bring them in, whether it's Zach Wilson or, somebody like Adrian Martinez that played in the UFL, was the MVP, competing for the third job with the Jets. There's a lot of names out there. Hundley, I think we've talked about him a little bit. PJ Walker competing for the third job with the Seahawks. I just think you look and try to, find what the best fit is in terms of maybe you get lucky and you find somebody that, is familiar with your scheme that can come in and be either a second or third guy. But ultimately, I think the Chargers are like most teams. Like if the starter goes down, you're probably in trouble. You probably don't have a chance to reach the postseason. If Mahomes goes down, do we think Carson Wentz is going to lead the Chiefs to the Super Bowl?
So I was going to say Fernando's high on Carson Wentz.
Well, Fernando's high on a lot of things. So I don't see Carson Wentz leading them to, the playoffs. Sorry.
Anybody, if you work with Sean McVay, Fernando's going to love that quarterback. That's all it is for him.
Baker, I told y'all Baker Mayfield last year, and look, if he were,
hyping up Sam Darnold too. Or
been watching Stetson Bennett in preseason.
No, I don't watch Stetson Bennett. Gilbert already knows my assessment of Stetson Bennett.
He's not good.
The way he prepares pregame for the game. I think he pregames a little too much. But no, I think being in that system, I think being with Sean McVay last year could have helped Carson. I think, but Andy Reid would just simplify and scheme around Carson and try and help him out. But I agree with what you're saying in that sense. So let's just say, in a weird world, they go with whoever is left on the team. I don't believe that's going to happen because I think Harbaugh's too smart. I think Huntley would probably be their best bet if we're going somebody off of that system because he's been on the Ravens before. He has that connection. Let's just say in a weird scenario, they're going to go with one of the two, Easton or Luis. What route would you kind of go with that?
I think it would be Easton just because he's familiar with Justin and familiar with the organization. And, I think it's important for the organization to have somebody in there that can help Justin prepare for the week. And Easton has done that, for several years. I think Luis would be better thrown into a game because he's played more football than Easton has played. When you look at how many reps he's gotten in the UFL, and obviously the UFL is not the NFL, but when you watch Luis in there, he's comfortable. He's throwing with anticipation. He has command of the huddle. He's getting guys where they need to be, even though he hasn't been running that offense for very long. The offense just seems to run smoother from my eyes watching Luis versus Easton. I think he's a more accurate quarterback too. I think he puts the ball where he needs to put it, and Easton is missing on a lot of throws. That said, I feel like Easton is a better athlete. And usually when your backup's in there, you have backup offensive linemen, and they're going to have to run around a little bit. I know when I covered Mike Holmgren, he used to always say he wanted a more athletic backup, and that's why he always had Seneca Wallace, because usually when your backup's in there, the legend of Iowa State before Brock Purdy or Seneca Wallace. And so he always wanted a more athletic guy that could run around a little bit because usually the protection was going to be very good. and you needed some guy that could create. And so that kind of lends, to maybe Easton, being the guy that you can throw in there. But you also have to run your offense to fit his skill set. And I didn't really feel like Roman was doing that. I did feel like he did that last week.
Yep.
You saw more called runs. You saw more, movement of the pocket. And you saw some bubble screens and some short stuff to kind of give Easton some confidence, which I think helped him.
He had that one drive until you formed about the 1 yard line. But that was a good drive overall.
It was a good drive.
just keep the ball. Just keep the ball, Easton.
He didn't finish, unfortunately.
Let me ask you real quick, Eric. Just don't you feel like maybe the UFL should be something that teams can send their backup quarterbacks to? I mean, they would get the reps. Yeah, maybe they get hurt, but you could just, in a sense, you could go get another guy. But I feel like maybe that's where the UFL and the NFL should kind of partner up, where they send their backups. And not everybody's going to want to send their backups, but you send a guy like Easton to go get those reps that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You go send NFL guys that you think, oh, that's my backup. But you know what? Maybe being in the spring ball, maybe that'll help them kind of elevate and get those reps. Do you feel like maybe that's something that the NFL should be doing and teams?
I think they're working towards that. I think ultimately the UFL would like to get to that point, kind of like we have with NFL Europe. And you saw guys like Kurt Warner and John Kitna. They were still with their teams, but they would go play in NFL Europe and get those reps, and it really helped kind of them ascend in terms of their development. So we may see that, in 4 to 5 years. I think ultimately they want those franchises to be bought by, people within those markets, ownership groups. And then they'd like the NFL to be involved and be able to send guys down and get those reps and still have their rights, and they could come back up and play for their whatever teams they belong to.
Hey, Eric, I'm up for getting Adrian Martinez with the Chargers. You get an Adrian Martinez and a Luis Perez, man. A lot of Latino names there in the quarterback room for the Chargers. Bring them in there.
There you go. Eric, moving on now to the other team that you have covered in the past and still do. The LA Rams, they seem to have the injuries just seem to be mounting up. Mm-hmm. Matthew Stafford did return to practice, I believe,
today.
Yep. He returned to practice today. Just what are you making? Are they in trouble with all these injuries? Do you think some of them are just, hey, the season's coming up, let's just hold you back a little bit? Kind of the way it seems like Harbaugh's kind of handling it, where it's like, hey, you feel something, just sit out, relax. Or what are you making of all these injuries?
No, I think it's exactly what you just said. I think most of them are minor, and they just want to make sure that those guys stay healthy for the start of this season. I think that's what they're doing with Puka. Jonah Jackson actually returned to practice and did some individual work. He's been dealing with a shoulder issue. I believe the 2 tackles have ankle issues, but I think they're minor, and they're hopeful that both those guys can get back. Alaric Jackson, left tackle, and Havestein, the right tackle. I believe those are the main ones. I think Ernest Jones has been out too, the middle linebacker. I can't remember Ernest's injury, but I think the thought is that he's going to be back for week 1 as well. So I think, when you're dealing with McVay, he's all about guys getting to week 1 healthy. He doesn't play his starters during preseason. He will give them some run during joint practice. But if there's any kind of possibility that something can be made worse by getting out there, he's going to err on the side of caution and hold guys out. And that's why he held Matthew out with the hamstring issue. He just was being extra cautious.
Eric, I think we asked you maybe a month ago how you felt about the Rams, and I think it felt like you're okay with them, being a wild card team or maybe getting 10 wins. Now a month later, thinking about the injuries, thinking about Matthew Stafford's contract dilemma. It feels like it's one more year, and then let's see how it goes, or we'll just break up and go our separate ways. Sometimes that could be a little concerning when you have some kind of drama behind the scenes. And also the big thing that I feel like a lot of people are overlooking, or maybe you're not, but the Aaron Donald thing, like how do you adjust without Aaron Donald? And also, can you have some guys step up in the secondary and stay healthy? You got some older guys there. Like I keep going back and forth. Like I like the Rams one day I don't. And then I see a bunch of injuries happening, and then I see guys coming back, and I'm like, okay, maybe they'll be fine. But I guess for you, how do you feel maybe a month or less for the season?
Daniel's not a fan of the Rams going into this season, by the
No
way.
surprise.
We've talked about that.
Oh, okay. Is that in the book?
That'll be in the book. Yes. Be a lot of 4-letter words that can't be printed. I know you mentioned the Aaron Donald thing, but I actually think they look okay up front when you watch them. When you watch Kobe Turner and Byron Young and Braden Fisk, who they drafted in the second round, and Jared Verse, they look like they can get after the quarterback. I would be interested to see how they stop the run, because I do think at times at joint practice the Cowboys were able to run the ball on them.
Yep.
And so I think that's a concern. Their front seven and being able to consistently stop the run without Donald there. And then I still have concern with the cornerbacks, with those guys being a little bit older and how they're going to hold up for the duration of the season. I feel like the Rams, their starters are pretty good, but I don't know about the depth behind those starters. And like you talked about, and I think that's why they're being really cautious about, starters getting dinged up and not getting them out there, is because they know their depth behind them is not as good. So if they lose those guys, particularly Stafford, if Stafford is done, I mean, I love Jimmy G, but I don't see that, happening for them being a 10-11 win team if Stafford's not able to play a bulk of the season.
Hey, Fernando's going to like Jimmy G in a year after he goes to the Sean McVay school of quarterbacks. He goes somewhere else. He's going to love Jimmy G.
I don't know about all that. By the way, I did like what Jimmy G did that day that we were at practice, Gilbert.
I know you did. You kept talking about it.
Yeah, I told you about that, right?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I don't know about Eric.
Oh, there was a interesting fan that was in the stands, and the fan asked, "Can you sign my son's stuff?" She's like, "Jimmy," or the person was like, "Jimmy, Jimmy." He turns, looks, and then kind of looks, and then double takes and goes, "Oh, I got you." After practice, he goes, "That's the only person that he signed her, or whoever it was, the individuals."
Let's say it was a hot mom, Fernando. It's okay.
Yeah. No, she was. Yeah,
That's
no,
easy on the eyes, huh?
Yeah, so he signed his stuff and then walked away. I was like, God bless Jimmy G.
He did it for the kid. Come on, Fernando.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he did a great job, great service. It's all about them kids. But Eric, could this be a situation of you keep the picks, or do you think the Rams may be close? Like if they have the okay from Aaron Donald about, hey, if you guys are close, we'll come back. I'll come back. Do you think this could be a situation of F them picks, or do you feel like this could be like Sean McVay for the future wants to keep his picks and keep on building this team, especially with the NFC is kind of has a question mark. It seems like the AFC has like the upper echelon, the middle of the pack, stuff like that. It feels like the NFC is kind of the 49ers have dominated it for the last few years, but it feels like it's more open.
I think the Rams are about winning, and so whatever is best for putting together a team that can win a Super Bowl, I think they're willing to do it. So I think if they get to a deadline and they need an impact player like they did in the past a couple of years ago by bringing Von Miller in, and they think that will put them over the top, I think they would move picks to do that if they believe that they have a shot of winning a Super Bowl and they're a player or two away. I don't think they are a player or two away, but I don't think this organization is concerned about taking risk. If they believe that there's a payoff there at the end. I think Gil could speak to that because he covered the Rams as well and has seen how they've done transactions in order to put themselves in position to be successful.
Even the whole Stafford situation where they wouldn't give him another extension because they want to keep their options open because they like to be flexible and make moves whenever the opportunity comes up for them. But to move on, Fernando, hopefully you don't mind if I take over this one, or you want to ask something else?
No, I just wanted to ask you one real quick. When he traded for Matthew Stafford, him and Matthew Stafford were at the same resort, right? And Jared, like Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford were at the same resort, and then obviously Goff was wherever the hell he was. Was that true?
No, that was true. I think they were in Cabo. Just coincidence.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, coincidence. All right, my bad. Go ahead, Gilbert. Take it over.
Yeah, we're talking about the NFC landscape here, and maybe like a two-parter for the 49ers, Eric, here. You know, we saw your story on Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers. You want them to get a deal done. You know, do you think that deal gets done this week? I thought it was going to happen last week. It was like, hey, he's going to go to the Steelers. Actually, no, they're going to work out a deal with the 49ers, and just been silent since then. And then my second part, like, you know, obviously I feel like if you have Aiyuk, I think it's still Super Bowl or bust. Do you feel like they could finally get all the way if they get Aiyuk in there?
Wait, Ayuk's not on the Steelers? Because I've seen multiple people tweet out that it's a
like,
done
wait,
deal.
what?
This is done. It's
Yeah, I
been,
know.
it's already happened.
It's been a mess, man.
I've seen a lot of people do it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It has been all over the place. I do feel like this is the week to get it done in order to kind of get him back on the field and start ramping up his activity. So when you get to week 1, you know, you feel like you can get the most out of him. You know, you also have to deal with the Trent Williams issue. You know, he wants more money because of the left tackle market, you know, kind of going past where he's at, and he still feels like he's 36 years old. So you have to kind of figure out how you want to manage that. I would think if you're the 49ers and they have a bunch of cap space going in this year, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and give him some guaranteed money, sprinkle some sugar on his deal for this year. And then if he wants to retire at the end of this year, or if he wants to move on, then you can kind of have a backup plan to figure out, you know, what you're going to do beyond the 2024 season. I think you're all in for this year for the Niners. You do whatever it takes to put the best roster available so that you can go ahead and win a Super Bowl, because nobody's going to care about, you know, whether you gave Aiyuk $35 million a year or you gave Williams a gang of money. Like, nobody's going to care about that if you win the chip. But if you don't and you didn't do those things, then you're going to be criticized that you weren't all in. So I think you really need to figure out the Aiyuk situation. He is their number one receiver. He is the guy that Purdy looks to in critical situations to get things done. And nobody on that roster can do what Aiyuk does on the perimeter. So he's unique. And, you know, the market is the market. It's their fault that they allowed the market to get that far. They could have signed Aiyuk in February and it would have been a lot cheaper than it's going to be now.
Let me ask you something. And we're talking to Eric D. Williams of Fox Sports. Eric, how do I put this? Brock Purdy and the preseason game, are you concerned at all about that? Or is it kind of like we'll see what happens during the regular season? But one of those interceptions was just, I was very surprised he threw that. Is there a little bit of concern in your mind that the 49ers should have in him? Or do you feel like, it's preseason, we'll see what happens during the regular season?
No, I think there's concern. You know, you watched them play and it wasn't great. I know a lot of the starters weren't in there, but the decision making wasn't what you're used to seeing from Brock, you know, in terms of, you know, getting the ball on time, or if he doesn't see it the way that he needs to see it, just throw the ball away. I felt like he was trying to really force the action when he didn't need to. And so, yeah, it is concerning. And the reports that you've been hearing from training camp that he's been throwing a lot of interceptions. Again, I know he's trying things and he's trying to see where he can fit balls in certain windows and trying to give guys opportunities to see what they can do. But yeah, it was a little concerning just watching him play. And I know it's preseason and all that, but you know, a lot of times what you see in preseason can be what you end up seeing in the regular season.
What you just said makes me think that I'm waiting for a shoot and a dog on it after that, just because it sounded a little similar to what somebody else used to say. Eric, 2 more quickly, and we will get you out of here. We appreciate you jumping on with us. You are the man with the plan, so we appreciate you. Could the Broncos be a sleeper with Bo Nix, or is it also preseason? Let's wait and see what happens during the regular season.
Yeah, I'm gonna pump the brakes on the Bo Nix hype. I need to see that during the regular season. I mean, I like him as a player, and I know Sean Payton have a lot of respect for him as an offensive guru. But I mean, we're kind of gassing him up here a little bit. Like, let's see what he does in the regular season when defenses are actually game planning for him. And I know he's an athletic guy, but let's see him do that against starters, against a real defense that's trying to get after him. So I do think they have a chance to maybe surprise some folks, but you know, he's not Joe Burrow. I mean, let's be easy there.
Eric, he starts off at Seahawks. Steelers come there. at Buccaneers, at Jets. Even the Raiders going there is going to be tough. Chargers.
We're going to find out early, right?
At Saints, Panthers, and then at Ravens, at Chiefs, Falcons. Yeah, no, that's
Gil, are you a believer?
I do.
You were there, right?
Yeah, I do like Bo Nix, but I'm glad that you said let's pump the brakes because, and I'll give you some stories. I won't name names here, but it was a very, I guess, well attended day because I went during the joint scrimmage against the Packers. So there was a lot of people there, and I kid you not, there was a lot of like, "Whoa, amazing throw! Oh my, you can't believe what I just saw." And I'm like, it was just a quick throw to the middle to Cortland Sutton. It was I think maybe Tim Patrick had to jump up to get it. He got it. They completed it. These are nice plays. He has good rhythm, good timing, but it's not Patrick Mahomes throwing behind his back pass. So it's like, let's tone it down. But, he is confident. And the one thing that's really concerning me, and I don't think it's a confidence thing, he is reading the field well with the defenses, but he rushes a lot of throws, a lot of overthrows. Like when people were losing their mind for that, just the pass down the middle to Cortland Sutton, the next play he overthrew a wide open. I forget the tight end's name there. I'm like, nobody wants to tweet about that. No, that's not that. It was like a third string. I think number 86. I'm blanking on his name. But nobody wants to tweet about that. Like he's gonna have his highs and lows. And the one thing that I like that Sean Payton is doing, it's a lot of quick throws, a lot of outlet passes, safety nets, and it's like, you know what? He has a timing. He has a good tempo, and I think Sean Payton threw a little jab at Russell Wilson when he said, "Hey, our quarterback with time and the tempo so much better than last year." So at least he's doing that.
Can't help himself.
I know, but at least he's doing that to run his offense the way he wants to. But you're right, Eric. You got to watch it in the preseason. You got to, sometimes these safety nets won't be there for you, and maybe when you got the training goes on, Sean Payton gets frustrated very quickly if you're not able to push a little bit down the field. But I think they're a little underrated. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I have them winning maybe. I think it's the over under is like 5.5 wins. 6 or 7 wins seems right because I think it's year 2 for Payton. You got guys that you like fit your scheme. And a funny story, Eric and Fernando. I'm like, okay, I see guys who fit the scheme. So that means maybe less pressure to make the roster. Is some core guys here. Maybe Sean Payton is less of a hard ass. And I asked Javonte Williams, like, hey, like, is it more laid back? He's like, hell no, man. Like, this guy's just joking around for the camera. He's still tough on everybody. So he's trying to make sure these guys are ready and fit the scheme. So we all know Sean Payton is a hard ass.
2 things quickly. One, can Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick stay healthy? They haven't been able to in any year. So that's going to be interesting. And second, don't sleep on the Mile High City MILF Hunter now.
Hey, Fernando. You gotta like those reviews from Zach Wilson. That I think Javonte and Mintz were saying it's like the best arm they've seen ever. But they also been in Denver for a bit,
Well, yeah, they're high off of multiple things,
and they've been with some bad quarterbacks last year. How about that?
Exactly.
Marijuana is legal in Colorado.
It is.
I smelled it everywhere. By the way.
By the way, did anybody give you, Gilbert, a Broncos country let's ride? Nothing.
No, I was hoping maybe Bo Nix or Zach Wilson will carry on, but no. But
he hasn't come out with anything for the Steelers, has he?
I don't think so, and you shouldn't after the way you've played the last 2 years. But yeah,
no, he should. Last thing, Eric, before we let you go, what is your thought on what Tua Tagovailoa said today on the Dan Le Batard show?
That you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate. You are the best, whatever. You are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that.
Eric, how do you feel listening to that, Eric? How do you feel? Because he feels a certain kind of way. How do you feel?
I think he's on that Drake. That's what I think.
He likes soft music. How about that?
Stop listening to Sade. I mean, look. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we know that, right? Because we saw what happened. So all he has to do is just go look at my highlights from last year, and then look how I played and just call it good. Like I don't feel like he needed to like voice that, in my opinion. I mean, we know what happened. We know that he's where he comes from, and it wasn't a good fit. So you don't need to like, sit down with Barbara Streisand and air it all out. I don't need to hear that.
Hey, and there's two sides to every story, Eric.
Right. So, and Flores isn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
I mean, so I respect that. So, just, hey, look at how I'm playing. Keep it moving.
Yeah, he might have came in all high and mighty and be a number 5 pick winning a natty in Alabama, and Flores was just trying to tone it down. That's it,
Like, you can't tell me that Nick Saban didn't shove his foot up his ass or anything, or maybe
That's
he
true,
wasn't
too.
around too long to hear it because he came in for 8 seconds, won the championship, then the next year had that hip injury. So maybe he wasn't all that much around, but still, I was just really surprised, especially from what we heard from Tom Brady in like January saying, yeah, this next generation's really soft. They don't like getting yelled at. They don't like people in their ear. So it's like, damn, you're really hearing the difference between two different generations of quarterback. Eric, before we let you go real quick, will Tom Brady play this season for any NFL team? Yes or no?
That's a no, man, because he's getting a lot of zeros.
Devontae Adams keeps on throwing it out there. He's thrown it out on 3 or 4 different
getting a lot of zeros
now
to be on TV, and I think he's probably pretty happy.
Can you imagine if he's narrating a Raiders game and Devontae just throws his helmet and Tom's like, I'll be right back. He just comes out with the helmet. He goes in there, throws a couple of touchdowns. And man, I'm telling you, the NFL is more like WWE than you all think. I'm just saying. But
I think Devontae would be happy about that.
I think he would. But we are happy. We're happy. Thank you so much, Eric. That was a great time spending time with you. We'll have you on again during the regular season. We love you. You are the best. Dan's going to be very upset that he missed you jumping on the show. But anything you want to say to him?
Good luck to his Saints this year.
Oh, there you go. We appreciate that, Eric. Thank you so much.